If you over dilute yourself early on, you may have rapid cash for rapid growth, but how much of that is really yours? If a founder is desperate, perhaps he needs to get a second job. And so I see a lot of urban farming stuff. A lot of it failed. One of the big reasons why they fail, and it's not the only reason, but one of them is that their energy cost is very high. If labor cost is expensive, waste disposal is expensive, real estate is expensive. And so I said, you know what? I need to find a sector that can help me solve all these challenges. And it happens to be that I like mushrooms. And one day I bought one of those mushroom grow kits, and here in my office, I grew a little mushroom. And I said, wow, which means I'm living my life now. Not a single regret on my deathbed, whenever that comes.
Good afternoon, Solomon. Thank you very, very much for being here. I want to just quickly introduce you to our audience. This is Solomon from the Sakal Group, one of the more sort of unapologetic operators that I've spoken to in a long time. Founder since 16, built through chaos, now running a family office portfolio while also building an AI-driven physical business with Mushroom Direct. So before we get into anything, Solomon, who are you really, and what has shaped you? Tell us about yourself.
Excellent question. Thank you very much for having me. Glad to have this conversation today. So who am I? First and foremost, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a builder. I'm someone who imagines the future and then tries to build things towards it. I am a risk taker. I am multilingual, do speak a bunch of languages. I was born in a former Soviet Union, raised in the States, educated in the States, engineering background. Though I dropped out of college 2 credits short of a mechanical engineering degree, I ended up studying under a professor whose patents I ended up taking over and are continuing to build today. My passion is for impact. I don't chase hype. I don't chase noise. I focus on things that fulfill me personally. I want to leave this world a little better than I got it, and at times that is a challenge. I thrive in chaos for some odd reason, and for the last 5 years, ever since COVID, I've been living in Israel and relocated here, met up with some really cool people. One of them is a guy named Kobe. He ended up becoming my partner. They come from the duty-free and retail sort of side of things, and they sold their businesses about 6 years ago and wanted to start a portfolio of early-stage, tech-driven, impact-driven companies. So that's what we started deploying into. For the first 5 years, our thesis was to focus on sort of the foundational layer of establishing, again, the sort of core of everything. We are a fairly young family office, got involved in a bunch of early stage stuff, some direct investments, some LP positions, some strategic investments due to, we invested into one thing and thought it'd be good to invest into another thing because they ultimately would connect. And for the next 5 years, our focus is on roll-ups, scale-ups, taking companies public, some of the portfolio companies that we've developed. And while at it, I'm also working on a SPAC. So, that is sort of me in a nutshell. What else can I tell you? That is me on the professional side.
Wow.
I don't have any special hobbies. I don't watch television. I read a lot. I collect autographed books. And yeah, that's pretty much me.
I mean, when you say that's pretty much you, there's a lot going on there. That in a nutshell, I mean, geez, there's so many different types of avenues and questions that we could go down, and no wonder you don't have any time for TV. So I mean, there's a hell of a lot going on there, and chaos has come up a lot. I mean, as I understand, could you talk through sort of if we run back a little bit to when you were 16 and that the first sort of stages of what shaped you? What happened at 16 that put you on this path? And chaos seems to go hand in hand from that point in time onwards. Can you sort of give us a little bit of understanding of what that was and how that has shaped you in today and how you manage all the different facets that you've just described?
That's an excellent direction you're taking this into. So I'll tell you, I don't think it was the age of 16 that started shaping me. It was really my sort of entire upbringing. I was born in a former Soviet Union. A few years after I was born, it collapsed. And then I was growing up until the age of 11 in a country called Uzbekistan, a city called Bukhara, where it was sort of chaotic, right? The country is now going into this rebuild mode. I remember myself as a 6 or 7-year-old kid in a bread line going through the whole experience. And then when I was about 11, my family immigrated to the States. We immigrated to Queens, New York. And, it was me and my 2 brothers my parents obviously, but my parents were mostly focused on, survival, right? I didn't have a GPS as to how to guide myself through life. I tried to stay out of trouble, studied martial arts as a way of survival, not because I wanted to be a karate kid or something. And we grew up in a very interesting neighborhood called Left Rack City, Queens. And Left Rack City was this mixture, a hot pot, a melting pot of like, people from all over the world, all cultures, and it was quite ghetto. In that sort of environment, you learn to survive, right? You learn to speak the various slangs to the various kids there, and you pass through the street, and you have to sort of not just act tough, but you have to walk with full confidence, because otherwise you're getting jumped and robbed for your sneakers. You know what I mean? And so I guess all of that, sort of shaped me and shifted my way of thinking about life. I started working quite early. I took on my first gig was a waitering job at a restaurant. I had a fake ID. I didn't I didn't have much experience, but I showed up. I said, "Hey, let me wait some tables." There was a small little traditional restaurant. Started with that. Got a taste of money. My parents couldn't supply me with what I wanted, what my brothers and I really needed, because it was all really about survival for them. And so from there, it just started piling up. Later, after that, I was parking cars at a valet parking company, and that is where I saw the opportunity. There was a company out in Astoria, Queens, that was sort of struggling, and I said, "Hey, why don't I scale this up?" And he says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I'm going to grow the business, and we'll split. Sort of 50-50, I'm going to do the work. You just make sure you keep paying the insurance and do what you need to do." And it was my first sort of deal where I came in as a partner, but I had no piece of paper to show for it. Eventually, the business did grow tremendously. We were providing, pretty much staffing services. It started off at valet parking, and then it scaled up busboys, waiters, and so on and so forth. And I would provide clubs, concert halls, catering halls, restaurants, the sort of staffing needs that they had. That didn't last too long. At about 21 years old, this partner started liking his drugs and alcohol a lot more than me. Found a way on how to cut me out of the equation. But in hindsight, it was the best thing that happened, because I would have been a valet parking executive still, perhaps. It wasn't a place where I was growing. But the one upside that I had from this scene, and I was parking cars myself. I had a strip club account that I used to man myself, and the kind of crowd that used to show up. You had everybody. You had the thugs and the judges all going to the same joint. And I built my network there. I created quite a large phone book and started finding ways to be of value to others. So I would try to find out what they do, little by little, with a simple hello, and then sort of jump into, "Hey, what do you do? What do you need? What do you look for? How can I be of value?" And I started connecting people. And in that process, I realized that, what? This is not so bad. I can build a network. I could create connections. And that was really the stepping stone. From there, I worked for the city of New York for a little bit, got my insurance licenses, worked for HHC, the Health and Hospital Corporation. That didn't last too long. I saw myself as more of an entrepreneur. I didn't like the whole 9 to 5. So launched a little consulting firm, started helping mom and pop shops. And then again, all of that, I got married fairly young, got fed up with the whole Playboy lifestyle, got married at the age of 22. And so from an early age, I had to man up. I had to have responsibility on my shoulder, like pay the rent, the bills, and so on and so forth. So you start thinking outside of the box, and then got involved with mom and pop shops, but instead of selling them the services, I would take a piece of the equity in return. I would handle all the advertising and sort of help them scale up, and then take a piece of the puzzle. That usually didn't last. 18 to 24 months later, they would want me out of the equation. I'd get my little buyout, and then on to the next. And that is how I built up my book of business. Last 3 big businesses that I was involved with got killed practically overnight. 2 of them were social daycare centers. One was a snack company, and this was during COVID. And so I looked at my wife. I had 2 kids at the time. I said, "Look, I think I married an Israeli girl." So I said, "Why don't we go to Israel? Take a bit of a sabbatical while we are sitting on cash. The whole world is in chaos. Everybody's locked up, with quarantine anyway. So why don't we do something different?" Came out to Israel, made a post on LinkedIn, said, "Look, I'm looking to be of value to others. This is my background. This is what I do. around the same time I took over some patents in waste management, and so I was looking to build a waste management facility here. This is really the right ground to start innovating and building. And so from here on, met a bunch of people over Zoom. People were hungry for conversations. Built up a network. One of the people I met was a gentleman named Kobe, and it's been a wild ride ever since. So we got together and started building up this family office. So it's been a lot of fun.
I mean, there's a lot.
I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but I want to limit, because at the end of the day, we only have so much time. I could write books about some of the stories, but at the end of the day, I have to sort of give you, smaller pieces of the puzzle. But you know what shapes you? I think I didn't give you a full answer. At the end of the day, what I found shaped me was struggle. Struggle and hunger shapes who you are, what you're looking to do, and then, you start becoming creative in this time of chaos. When you have responsibility, overhead, and so on and so forth, and there's no silver spoon to feed you, you start thinking of solutions. You start thinking, well, how do I do it myself? How do I build up? How do I create? Got no money? Well, how do we make money? Right? And so all of this sort of comes from struggle. At the end of the day, that's the way I see it. So my entrepreneurial journey really started as an immigrant story. And that immigrant story is what led to some of the cool stuff that we're building today.
That's phenomenal. I absolutely resonate and align with that very, very much. Struggle, chaos. I mean, there's a very clear theme, right? Struggle, chaos, navigating different types of personalities, spotting opportunities, spotting gaps in the market. And you said it several times. How can I add value? How can I bring value to the table? To this business, whether it's mom and pop, whether it's people coming through the doors at the nightclubs that you were at, or whichever institutions you were at. How could I add value to these people? And that was then you being able to discern, spot the gaps that you could see, which means you obviously have a very clear eye amongst all this chaos.
I was very focused. On finding ways. Like, there's a beautiful saying. A gentleman named Myron Sugarman shared it with me. He says, the hand of the giver is always on top. So I was always focused on not what I can extract, but what can I give, right? Because if you think of a position of a giver, what does it mean the hand of the giver is always on top? You're not coming this way. You're not coming, hey, give me, or hey, what can I take? You're coming more of, what? How can I add to your plate? How can I be of value? What can I do that helps you? And in return, I found that is what creates value in return. And so, that is really what my eye was always focused on. Finding those gaps where I can actually add and not extract.
And I think that's such a critical reframe. I think we're in a world whereby people are me, and more me, and what can I get? And that's how we are conditioned. That's how society is set up to think, or make people think that I've got to go and grab for me only. And what people don't understand is that I always live by the saying, we rise by lifting others. And in a team, for example, if we help other people do well within what we're doing as a group, if each individual does well and we help those individuals where we can and where we can see a gap within where they are and where they need to be, if we do that for each person where we can, the collective rises, which in turn helps me as the individual.
I love the word team, because there's an acronym that I always, I share with my team. Team is together, everybody achieves more.
Love that. That's exactly right.
Use it. You can coin that term.
Right. That's phenomenal. And that aligns and makes sense immediately to me, and I couldn't agree more. And I think more people who think that would be better for this world. And sadly, it's the opposite, because we are conditioned the opposite, right? And
because we're conditioned to be enslaved to a job, to a society that wants us to be, a good citizen, wake up in the morning, run to your job, take your kids to school, and, do the whole thing, come back and repeat. And that is why you need to create these entitled me individuals, because that is the only way that can they can grow the coffers, right? They're gonna run to chase their instant gratification, and with that, they end up paying into the system, right? And that then allows them to gratify whatever it is that they're after. They want that next bag or the next car or whatever it may be. So it's really, at least in my opinion, it's early programming, because that is how schools are set up today, if you really think about it. Schools are not built for entrepreneurship. Neither are universities. And so I think it's really conditioning. I don't know if it's deliberate or not, but ultimately the outcome is, people have a certain way of looking at life. And the people that I was fortunate to meet in my life, who ended up serving as my mentors, always showed me that they were out there looking to, solve some big problems for others. And that is in return how they made quite a nice living and built up a career. So I don't think the conditioning of society is the pathway for entrepreneurship. It's the opposite. It's going against the grain that helps.
I absolutely fully agree with it. I can say that, having experienced both sides of the coin, because I can fully attest to the fact that I was totally conditioned. I was totally within the box of what society deemed credible, deemed respectable, deemed success. Going to university, going to school, getting great grades, going to university, going to work on Wall Street. I was at JP Morgan for 15 years. I was their number one producer on high-touch equity sales trading, right? And I thought that was success, because that's what I was told was success. And I could never understand along the way, like when I'm number one producer, say net numbers, right? Why I felt, and it occurred to me, is this it?
There is a sense of emptiness at some point.
Right, and there was always a gap within me as to, hang on, they said that I checked all these boxes, the house, the this, the that, the what, the qualifications, the numbers, all of this stuff. I checked so many different boxes that I'd been told equals success, and there was this void still. And I remember thinking, when I was always trying to be like creative or slightly entrepreneurial, slightly outside the box within the framework that I was sitting in on a trading floor at an investment bank, why that wasn't fostered or fueled or people were excited about. They were like, no, just do this. And then I got in a situation where I was moving between one place and another, and I had space out, time out. I had no choice but to have time out. And I started to look at, what I could do, how I could build my own business up, and look at what the entrepreneurial sort of path would be. And exactly what you have just described is what I then realized, I've been in the wrong place my entire career, right? I've been in and don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for it. It gave me a lot. I learned a lot. I will never regret having gone down that path. And
you need all of it.
Right,
you need all of it.
Experience it to understand what you've just said, right? I would not have been able to resonate and align with what you've just said had I not been there, and then started my own thing to realize, that's the difference between the two, the gap. So that's super interesting, absolutely on point so far as I can tell, not just from a intellectual theoretical perspective, but from an actual practical perspective from what I have experienced. And as I walk down the path of like my own entrepreneurial path, I'm understanding that more and more and more, and it makes more and more sense, and I feel significantly more. I don't ask the question, is this it? I'm like, this is it.
Because you're feeling fulfilled.
Right.
You are feeling like it's giving you not just a feeling, but a form of gratification within yourself.
Right.
You actually enjoy what you're doing. You know the famous known saying, if you find what you love, right, you'll never have to work a day in your life. That's really where it's at. I guess people, entrepreneurship is not for everyone.
No.
But for those that do choose this path, they have to really find what they love. And I think what you are fortunate with, and so am I, frankly, is the fact that we actually love what we do. And so it then becomes so much more fulfilling.
For sure. And struggle is a part of it, and chaos is a part of it. And actually that's
Absolutely.
where I learned most. And that's
Absolutely.
what I'm hearing from what you're saying as well. You have grown the most, and you have learned the most, and you've succeeded the most from your struggle and from the times that have been like push comes to shove, this is painful, I've got to earn some money, I'm married, I've got family, I need to get this together quick. And then you moved, and then you figured it out, which is incredible, which absolutely resonates. So let's fast forward. Israel, LinkedIn, the family office jumped. You posted on LinkedIn, as you just mentioned, where your inbound then exploded and you were doing, 5 to 10 calls a day. What did you write that actually triggered that response? And what did you do on those calls that built trust?
That's a great question. First of all, I never went on those calls intending to build trust. My intention on those calls was to go and sincerely meet somebody. So that's the first layer. The second layer, I don't remember the exact text I wrote, but it was something along the lines of, hey, I'm an entrepreneur from New York. I'm now in Israel on my sabbatical. I'm looking to find ways to be of value here locally. I'd like to meet all the movers and shakers. Ping me if you'd like to jump on a Zoom and just have a quick introduction. And that led to people just messaging me. I got exploded with messages. I think my LinkedIn profile went from, let's say, about, 5,000 connections to like 10,000 connections in like a month.
Wow.
It exploded. A lot of inbound messages. And I guess people were sincerely just hungry for communication. They wanted to meet cool people. And that is how I created a lot of the relationships that I have today. Because I don't come on any of these calls, I never did, seeking something. On the contrary, I always ask, after the initial introduction, I talk about what I do, the other person discusses what they do. And I say, look, amazing. This is sort of my deck of cards, but I'm playing with them wide open. These are the cards that are available to me. Which one do you need? How can I be of value to you? And so when you start playing the game this way, I think it's just a lot more organic, right? There's no salesy, there's no pushy, I'm literally not selling or buying anything. I'm simply coming sincerely to build a genuine connection with an individual, with a human being. I'm a resource for a lot of people because of that, right? People call me, hey, I need a connection in this field. Do you know somebody? I happen to have quite a large network. My phone book is quite large, and many times these connections, they end up becoming useful maybe years later. And I don't even look for a way how I can take a cut out of anything that I put together. It almost automatically happens because I also treat the market this way. And so if somebody was to connect me to someone and I end up doing a business deal with them, I make sure I count the person that connected me there. And I have a model and I warn the person. Let's say you and I got introduced by, Mr. J, right? And you and I are about to close, a couple of $100,000 and whatever, right? A transaction. So I will let you know, Dylan, by the way, since Jay introduced us, my model is very simple. Everybody eats. And so we have to figure out how to compensate Jay for putting this relationship together, because without it, we would not have this transaction. And you know what ends up happening? You end up building credibility in front of Dylan because you just told Dylan you would not cut out Jay. And so automatically Dylan now realizes what your values and principles are, that you won't cut him out of another equation. And so what ended up becoming out of that is, and by the way, Dylan went back to Jay and said, dude, fucking, I don't know where you found this cat, but he didn't have to do that, but he just automatically included you into the transaction. And now all of a sudden what ended up happening, you are seen, for your values and principles as the highest level player that's playing. And I don't give a shit if I have a piece of paper or not, right? So certain moral standards have to be there. At the end of the day, that is the value system, right? And if you do that, at least that is what worked for me. I'm not saying that is the right or wrong in life. And that is, I guess, what people saw. Right. So they would automatically, I would have a short Zoom with someone and he would say, you know what, I think I know who would become useful to you. Let me connect you with this dude. And then before you know it, boom, boom, boom. I also run an agency. There's a bunch of stuff that I do. And so, I provide services still. I can build stuff for people, all sorts of stuff. So I would do something with them. And then I would, come back to the person that connected me. Hey, by the way, I need an address. I got to send you a check. Wow. Write me an invoice for this. Boom. And people appreciate that. People appreciate you counting them into the equation. And I guess that is what, the genuine gesture and approach to business and to these relationships and communication with people, I think that is what leads to, you know, that growth, not just across social media platform, just in general. Be a proper, genuine dude. Don't be slick. It's okay. You could let everybody have a little piece of the pie. There's enough food to go around. Once you start having that sort of mentality, it just explodes naturally. And the same thing happened with me on LinkedIn. I mean, people just, they connect. And by the way, I always post. I'm active on LinkedIn. I always create content. I think LinkedIn, I'm not active on any other platform as I am on LinkedIn. I find it to be a value to me. And so, people go back to your earlier content and they see the stuff that you share and, what you write about. And I guess they resonate with that.
That's I have huge respect for that. That makes you one of the rarer people within business.
I don't know if it's rare, Dylan. I don't think it's rare. I actually don't think it's rare. I don't think it's rare. I think you end up attracting whatever you put out. I do believe there are good people out there, and there's enough of them.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer of the fact that everything is a 50-50 in life. You've got the good and the bad apples, right? But I'm a big believer of the fact that whatever you put out is what you get right back. So if you start living your life with a certain value system and principle system, you end up getting the same kind of people coming into your life. And that is at least what I've seen.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's absolutely. It's sort of a law of attraction type, frame of mind, and I couldn't agree more with you. But equally, I think whoever and whatever comes into your life, can be a win-win regardless of whether we describe it as a bad situation or a good situation. Because if you decide to pull something from the bad situation that you learn something from, that you then take and then that you didn't know before and apply to the follow, then that's knowledge that you didn't previously have, and therefore that's growth, and therefore you win, even if it's from a situation that triggered in a negative way to begin with, right? So it's
let's call that tuition. A good lesson learned, and you pay tuition for it.
There you go. Exactly. There you go. I love that. But it's true though. I think that's actually, a super amazing thing. So, what I'm hearing is that you, instead of like going out there trying to network the way that traditional networking is, you sort of position yourself as sort of being open for conversation.
Well, I always start with a question. I say, everybody's got a story. What's yours? And I genuinely care to know what the human being that's sitting across from me, what his story is. And if the person jumps straight into his professional side, I say, hold on, time out. But what is your actual story? Right? And I guess human stories also dictate the outcome of what the human being becomes. Right? And so I am genuinely curious about those stories. And I guess that is what, at least in my approach, what I find, builds this genuine connections and relationships.
Amazing. So sort of moving on to sort of a couple of things that I've seen on LinkedIn that you've written about, or, you've spoken about. You talk about one of your core doctrines being equity equaling control. And you talk about, over dilution killing more companies than bad products, right? And if you can, for the audience, just break that down. What does over dilution look like?
You really want to go down that rabbit hole.
I want to because there's entrepreneurs and people starting up here, including myself, right? And you've been down this route of experience where I think a lot of your wisdom could help people understand that a bit more clearly versus, say, going down the VC segment where ultimately VCs just care for money, right? They don't care about your business. They don't care about what your passion is. And, I think it's important for people to understand, yes, there's a difference between needing money to survive, needing money to accelerate, needing money, because, a VC or a PE makes you look credible. Talk to us more about that for this. I think this audience would benefit from that.
Well, first of all, a person that is starting a company or starting a business or got together with his friends and is building something, I think there's a core conversation that he or she needs to have with himself, and if he's building it with others, with his partners. what are you looking to build? Are you looking to build a business to flip, or are you building a business that will actually potentially outlast you, right? Are you building a business that you're looking to rapidly scale, or are you looking to build a business that's highly successful where it may not be a rapid scale up, but over a course of, 20 years, you'll get it to where you need it to be, right? You really have to decide what it is you're building, because the VC model and a business building model, they're not necessarily aligned, right? Because there are certain incentives, and the kind of investor that comes into your cap table, that is important. I could give you a real life example. My buddies and I were recently building this company, Mushroom Direct. We decided, three of us, we had great experience in the past. They were building a company called Plenty Snacks. I jumped in as a consultant first. I was hired as a consultant. I still do that time to time. But I was hired as a consultant, fell in love with the guys. They're amazing people. I said, I could see myself building with them. And I said, you know what, moving forward, I won't be charging you, but I'm going to take a little bit of equity out of the company. And we had an agreement. But in essence, because we built something together, we wanted to start this new thing. And there's a whole backstory to it because of patents that I owned and whatever. And so when we got together, we had this conversation. What are we looking to build? Are we building a business where, we will create something massive and that our kids will enjoy the fruits of it? Or are we building something that is just going to be a job for us, right? Because ultimately, if you think about it, those are all different models. If you over dilute yourself early on, you may have rapid cash for rapid growth, but how much of that is really yours, right? Let me elaborate. Here's this real scenario. That company went out and built a proof of concept. We raised our first pre-seed round, raised, I think, a little over $500,000. Between the founders, we put in a little bit of money, and we raised some outside money. And that dilution was like 10%. Even though we knew we could have raised more money and left 50% between us as founders, but you have to have sort of foresight. What happens 6 months down the line, a year down the line, when you're going to have to raise another round? You're not necessarily going to be able to self-finance it, especially when you're doing business, doing a business that has a large capex. So you're going to build something massive. You're not going to build a factory and self-finance it. You're not going to do it with debt either. That's not possible. It's very difficult unless you already have a track record and, people will throw money behind you. But let's say as early stage founders. And so these co-founders and I decided, we said, look, you know what? Let's raise only what we need. And we raised just enough to build a nice proof of concept, prove out the market, prove out that we've got something solid going on. And then we went out and scaled and raised a little more money, but now at a higher valuation. We already have a market. We already have a direction. We understand what we're building. We're leveraging the technology, the facility to build certain technologies. And so now that we had a core thesis figured out, then we raised a little more. But even after scaling up, we still own about 80% of the company, right? Most people by this stage, and this is a 2.5-year-old company, by this stage, most people diluted 50% of their company to VC already, right? So that is, I think, a core principle. Figure out what it is you're trying to build. And me, personally, because I have a track record of building stuff, so I said, clearly, look, I see this as a 5-year plan. I'm trying to take this company from 0 to X, right? In my view, it's a $100 million company. How do I get there? I know that I have a liquidity pathway. I know that I'm going to take the company public through either an M&A, a reverse merger, or I will take over a public vehicle and then, roll up this private company into it. So there are pathways that I'm looking to take, but knowing what I know today, I would not do it the traditional way of raising from VC. I don't have any VC on my cap table, by the way. The family office was one of our backers as well. We have strategic investors, every single one of them. One of them is a massive distributor out on the East Coast. Another one's a marketing company. Third one is a real estate player looking to get into farming. So every single player that joined the cap table adds something of value, more than money. And we actually interviewed the people we were, asking to invest into us. And we had to reject some checks. Yes, we rejected some investments because they didn't fit, right? They didn't fit strategically. They didn't fit Intellectually, they didn't align with what we were looking to build. And it was all, like you said, me, right? If I'm putting in money, how much money am I going to win here? And I'm allergic to that model. Instead, the question should have been, well, if we put up so much money into this, and you guys obviously took it this far, how far can we take it, right? And that is a very different investor. And so, coming back to your question, you have to be conscious about what you're looking to give away. If you're going to give away too much equity, way too early, I've seen some horrible stories. I've seen stories of people being, building massive businesses, but by the time they got it to a large scale and they're going for an exit, they only maybe have 5% of the company left. And then they have a lockout period, right? Once they go public, they do an IPO, they can't sell their stock for 12 or 24 months. And now, the VCs hyped it all up, and it was, a bombastic IPO, and all of a sudden, after the first quarterly earnings, the stock drops and the company's down as shit. But guess what? The VC's already cashed out and they're coming back to their LPs. Oh, we had an X return because of this exit. Nobody spoke about the outcome of that exit, though. The long-term outcome. The potential of the guy that ran the company is now divorced. His kids are struggling. He mortgaged, he took a loan from under his home. There's crazy scenarios, and these are real scenarios I've witnessed. His wife left him because he couldn't pay the bills. On paper, he's a wealthy dude, but the company now tanked, and he took on toxic debt, and right, and so many different things happen. Meanwhile, the VC already came out, and everything is kosher. They're feeling great. But really, we have to be sort of carrying responsibility. And as founders, we have to have that conversation internally. Where are we looking to go? And if we are looking to go to build this as a rapid, rocket ship, fine. But be prepared that with the money that you're going to raise, you're going to heavily dilute your company. And, if you put it on a scale, let's say you do exit 5-7 years down the line. How much of that exit do you want to enjoy? What does that exit profile look like? What is the scenario? And those are questions you have to ask. I mean, we could have this conversation for hours, but I'm trying to sort of keep it brief.
What I'm hearing is trying to discern between, the smart money and the story money, and, which is absolutely key. But if you've got a founder, say, listening to this, about to raise, and they're desperate, what's your advice to them to avoid signing their life away in the way that you sort of describe some of the horror stories you've seen?
You are giving me a question that I can try to answer, but it's never straightforward, right? What do I mean by that? A founder is desperate. Why is he desperate? How far into the growth is he? Is this a pre-seed company? Or is this a Series A, right? Is this a company with 5-year, a 5-year timeline? Is this a company that's doing $2 million a year, or is this a company with zero revenue and $200,000 burn rate per month? So there's a lot of factors that go into this, right? And there's obviously many ways to skin the cat. But look, if a founder is desperate, perhaps he needs to get a second job. If you're building a company and you're desperate, because it does get difficult, right? And if you're building a company just to write yourself a salary, that's already a problem. Sometimes you end up, a couple of years without a single buck, paid to yourself. That's also possible. Yeah. So perhaps this shouldn't be an all-in for this person if he's desperate. Maybe he should only spend 50% of his time, build it after 5 o'clock, right? Get your 9 to 5, have your grind on to keep the lights on, get out of the desperate situation, because when you are desperate, you are not able to think clearly. I've been there. You cannot think clearly, and you start making decisions that are irrational, foolish, and long-term, ultimately, you will end up, hitting yourself over the head for taking certain decisions. In hindsight, I'm glad I never took on VC money. I actually never had VC money. We've been LPs in VC funds, but would I do it as a founder? Would I take that kind of check today? Probably not, unless it's some special occasion and they're giving me something, that the term sheet is flexible enough that I could protect myself and my company from a hostile takeover or getting thrown out of my company or whatever. I mean, there's so many different scenarios, and I'm afraid it's going to need a lot more than this short conversation.
Yeah,
But
no.
ultimately, get a fucking job is what I want.
You're desperate, right? I get it. I get it. I
You
mean,
know,
I think when it comes to desperation, what I hear and from many people is like money through the door, right? They literally don't have the money to like pay the bills to keep the internet on, and they have an AI, and they have an internet. That's But yes, for sure, I hear what you're saying. Like, why are you desperate?
move
What
back to your
gets you by?
mother's house. I don't know. Cut your bills down.
Right.
Figure out how to finance your way through. And again, company from company is different, right? It's a very different scenario when you're an early stage player and you're the solopreneur, you're the only one building versus a player that has, 50 people on his payroll and he's desperate because his invoices are not being paid fast enough. I mean, each scenario is different. And I get consulting clients once in a blue moon that come to me with some of these problems. And these challenges can sometimes be solved in a strategic way. It doesn't necessarily have to be that you go out and dilute yourself, nor do you have to go and sell your ear to raise the capital, right? There
100%.
are smart strategic ways to do things. You
Yeah.
could roll up into somebody else's company. You could find a public vehicle that needs a new product, and you guys happen to be vertically aligned, and you can be an add-on to him and to his story, and this public company happens to be trading on NASDAQ. Why don't you come and knock on his door and say, hey, I've built a great product. I think I could be of value to you. Why don't you roll me up under your umbrella? But these are my terms. Like, there's so many ways to skin the cat. It's not necessarily all straightforward. Hey, let's go raise a VC round. You understand what I mean?
100%. There's lots of different things to take into account and understand what the root causes of what the trigger is and what's sort of driving it, for sure, without a doubt. And I think that's the key, right? If anyone is in that situation where they feel desperate, why are you desperate? What is the actual root cause of that? Dig deep into that, pinpoint that, and then dig deep from that point onwards. Smart. So let's move to Mushroom Direct. You said something important previously. From what I've read, you didn't get into that business just to grow mushrooms. So what is Mushroom Direct really?
So it's funny you ask. So Mushroom Direct is an interesting company. How much time do we have? Do I have the time? Because I can talk and talk on this subject. I
Well,
just want to make sure.
we're coming towards the end of it, but I've got time for you. You're like, there's so much interesting stuff. We could talk for days, months.
Agreed. So I'll tell you, Mushroom Direct is a funny story because I knew that I needed to solve certain problems. I took over a patent about 6 years ago in waste management from a professor who unfortunately passed away. He was my mentor, Dr. Anatoly Rokhvarger. He was 82 years old when he passed away right during COVID. And I made him a promise. I made him a promise that I was going to take his patents to the finish line. And the patent was focused on, it's waste to energy. It's a thermochemical method of gasification of waste, which is a mouthful, but in essence, it is a process that gasifies waste and turns it into energy. Most of these plants, though, are built with what we call power purchase agreements. So in essence, before building a plant, you go and you sign an agreement with your local city or municipality or government or, depending on where you are. But many times those power purchase agreements, there is no return on investment. I mean, a 10-year return on investment is not a return on investment; it's a charity. And then when you start doing the sort of financial plan, you start realizing, this $100 million I'm about to go and spend from the financiers, I may not be able to recover for at least 10 years, and I won't even have enough money to left over after all is said and done. And so when I looked into the model, I said I needed to find a use case for the energy. So rather than send the energy off to the grid under a PPA, a power purchase agreement, I said I want to find a use case. And when I reached out to my guys, Arthur and Avram, I said, look, guys, we have a couple of options here. I could build a facility here in Israel. In conjunction to it, we could set up, maybe a Bitcoin mining facility. But I'm not passionate about it. It doesn't add value to, at least in my opinion, there's enough Bitcoin mining out there. I'm not going to add value to humans who have a food security issue, right? I'm not going to add value to farmers who can't feed their animals. I'm not going to add value because the supermarket, is still the food is still expensive. So I said, you know what? I like the concept of leveraging it for urban farming. And then I go deep into urban farming. And meanwhile, you have to understand, I'm in the family office, so we see about 1,000 deals a year, right? And I'm getting all sorts of stuff in various verticals. I make a post on a certain subject, and then that subject starts coming into my inbox. And so I see a lot of urban farming stuff. A lot of it failed. And I had to, I went deep. I started diving deeper. I said, why did those businesses fail? Ultimately, I went through this whole got into this rabbit hole, sort of unpacked everything, and there was a lot of like hype around urban farming back, I don't know, what is it, 5 years ago? And I looked at all of the cases, and I looked at a certain thing. One of the big reasons why they fail, and it's not the only reason, but one of them is that their energy cost is very high. Boom, that's a nice check mark. And if their energy cost is very high, what else is expensive? Why is it so difficult to keep an urban farm? Labor cost. Oh, okay. If labor cost is expensive, what else? Well, waste disposal is expensive if you're in an urban setting. Well, what else? Real estate is expensive. And so I said, you know what? I need to find a sector that can help me solve all these challenges. And it happens to be that I like mushrooms. And one day I bought one of those mushroom grow kits, and here in my office, I grew a little mushroom grow kit, and I said, wow, this thing doubled in size every single day. I said, this can be a great product to help me solve some of those challenges. And I called my guys. I said, guys, we're going to start a company called Mushroom Direct. Mushroom what? Mushroom Direct. And GPT just came around, so I went on GPT, and I built out literally the entire company, let's call it paper trail infrastructure within a couple of days. From business planning to research to you name it. Watched a ton of videos, read books. I mean, I went deep into mycology like you can't imagine. And I'm a terrible biologist, by the way. Figured out the model, made a list of everything we need to buy to build out a proof of concept, started looking for a property, and launched this facility. But ultimately, we built it for the sake of solving some of these challenges. First one is energy. Well, it happens to be that you can grow mushrooms from waste, and then you can upcycle that waste to produce energy in-house. The next layer to that is human labor. Well, if human labor is expensive, how do we solve it? You can automate it. You can automate it the Chinese way. You could have a bunch of conveyor lines and sort of, this heavy equipment. Or why don't we take advantage of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and humanoid robotics? Humanoid robots are not expensive as they used to be anymore, right? This is not, 10 years ago. This is not Boston Dynamic prices. Like you could literally pick up a robot in China today for, $50K to $100K. And this is a high level robot. And so, okay, that's interesting. We can solve the human issue with that. All right, what else do we need? We need to figure out how to get rid of our waste. Well, that comes right back into the waste to energy process. Okay, so if we get rid of the waste, we automate the labor part of it, what else are we missing? And I understood that real estate is expensive in Queens, New York, for example. I said, okay, how do we use the space to the best of our ability? And so what we've done is we've created a sort of mezzanine, whichever way you pronounce it, a floor within a high ceiling space to sort of create 2 levels to this facility. And we engineered the facility in such a way that we're literally using and leveraging every nook and cranny. And now we're leveraging this research and development center as a full-scale functional farm to develop solutions for the industry. And so on the back of this farm, through the data that's coming in through the cameras, we're getting all the data from the mushrooms as they thrive. And if there's a problem, we can detect that problem. And now we're tagging all that data. Once the data is getting tagged, and our system is now, I think, 85% accurate on the various strains that we grow, as far as what strain it is, maturity level, conditions that it's being raised under, and so on and so forth. And then you can plug in the Raspberry Pi and connect the various sensors into it, and you can have the system act as your sort of oracle brain, right? And make decisions and say, you know what, it's a little too cold, it's a little too hot, the humidity is not high enough, the humidity is too high. And it could help you make decisions and in the beginning give recommendations what's better, but eventually get to a point where it's fully controlling the entire growth cycle. That way you can literally pick up a tablet. By the way, the entire facility is operated off my cell phone today. You pick up a tablet, you plug in what mushroom you're growing, how much of it you're loading in, you scan all the QR codes because there's a tracing system involved as well, and you let it go. And now it makes the decisions on how to grow it, how to do it right, and you're cultivating a perfect product every time. Dude, you have it. I got to take you on a tour now. The next time I'll take you on a little tour. I'll take
We
you into a
literally
robot.
need.
I'll share my screen. I'll take you into a robot where I'll literally take you around the facility and show you this place.
I mean, it sounds incredible. So where is it? Where is it based?
It's in Queens, New York. You can Google Mushroom Direct. The website is mushroom.direct.
And how long has this been? How long has this been running?
It's a 2.5-year-old business since we started the company. It is running as a full-scale R&D facility now since late August, beginning of September. So, we did a proof of concept phase, tested the market, understood what we're doing, sort of scaled that up. And by the way, there's a whole lot that goes into it. There's now end products that we're making from the stuff we're growing. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Wow.
It's really, really cool. It's one of my babies. It's one that I'm really passionate about, and we've got a lot of great investments, but this one I really care about because it helps me keep my promise, the promise I made to that professor.
Well, that's there's several fundamental things there. First and foremost, or one big thing, a passion of yours. Two, you made a promise to someone. You keeping your word to that gentleman. That's huge. You said you're going to do something, and you're doing it. Hats off.
It is challenging as hell, by the way. I've never grown a mushroom prior to this. Now doing it in tons.
That's the fundamental basis of who and what you are. A challenge, challenges. That's what drives you. Because if it wasn't a challenge, it just wouldn't be the same.
Absolutely.
It would not be the same. And so, and then you're bringing value to a space where there is demand. You've got like a number of big drivers and big pushers that are fundamental. So that's awesome, man. Good luck with that. And we, wish you huge help, huge success with that rather.
Now let's do the opposite. Let's do the opposite now. There are going to be some people on my network that are going to hear this podcast and, Dylan, how can my network be of value to you? How can I be of value to you? What are you building? Why are you building it? And what are you looking for?
Wow. First and foremost, from our first conversation, just an interesting conversation with people who have, a mindset that is just different from others and that aligns to who and what I am. And like what you said earlier, you attract what you put out. And I've attracted a lot of stuff that isn't what I am, but that's just made me define or realize or discern what I am and what I do want to be around and who I want to be around. So that was the biggest single driver of this from our first conversation. To have an interesting conversation, to understand more, to learn more, to hear wisdom from people such as yourself who've walked this path. Because I'm starting up my own business, my own AI business, where I create AI personas, bespoke AI personas, my own IP, my own framework where I create self in AI. And I'm creating those for other people's experts in their field. So that's my business, is what I do. I'm traveling that path of running my own business. And really, this conversation is about building my own YouTube channel and interesting people on it, talking about being an entrepreneur, traveling that path, building businesses, pitfalls, different perspectives from different people from all walks of life and industries. And I've now interviewed 8 or 9 different people from the States, mainly from the States, from all different types of industries, and those interesting angles that people bring to the table is the real driver behind this particular conversation. But with respect to what I do, I'm building an AI company, yours.ai. My flagship product is bespoke AI personas. I have my own IP, my own framework, where I basically take people's expertise and scale it so that they can earn money from it. So not just AI that talks, AI that earns. And people are effectively taking their knowledge, their mindset, I'm applying it to Gen AI and creating an AI version of themselves, not a chat bot, not an AI twin, that people can,
Who is your perfect client?
an ex, any expert in their field. I'm currently going after the people
Well,
who
he's
I
got to be able to afford it. So it can't be just be any expert. I'm sure the service is not free. So this got to be an expert that has a few dollars in his pocket. What is the average cost of such a system for anybody listening?
Yeah, so I'm business coaches, people who have established businesses. Again, who like I'm doing one for UK's number one mold expert. I'm doing one for a business coach. I've done one for a business coach, launched it. I've launched one for the mold expert. I'm doing one for a manifestation coach. I'm doing another one for a horticulturist, an expert in his field in gardening, and authorities in their field. So to create an AI persona where people can earn money from it, where this thing can potentially earn them millions on a subscription at $20 a month, $240 a year for one subscriber. If someone has an authority in their space and a following, and they get 1,000 followers of theirs to pay 20 quid, $20 a month, that's $240,000 just there from 1,000 people. And people who have a deep niche, and all of these people do, 10,000 people out of a distribution list of 100,000, 50,000, whatever it might be, is 2.4 million bucks. So that's the opportunity for people, and that's what they're seeing. A year and a half ago, when I brought my own to market, people are like, didn't know what the hell I was talking about. I thought I was late to the market. I thought people had already done what I already done, and people were like, what are you talking about? And then they were like, can you build that for me? I was like, what? I genuinely thought that wasn't revolutionary. I genuinely thought that people were having a laugh. I thought, because it's so obvious to me, but the business coach that I presented this to was like, no, mate. A, what are you talking about? B, no one knows how, even if people do know what you're talking about, they don't know how to build it. And then C was like, I was like, okay then, if you think it's so good, let me build one for you, for your community. And he said yes. So without a name of my company, without a website, without a logo, with nothing, he put money in my bank and said, do the same for me. Create what you did for yourself for me. So I did. Launched it in May, and the reaction amongst the community was wild. We're talking about UK SMEs, entrepreneurs, people who basically sign up to his programs to get coaching from him on how to build, grow, and scale their own businesses. And now they can talk to, I've taken 2.1 million words of how he thinks about business, strategies, meta ads, etc. How he thinks, not how ChatGPT-5 thinks or Claude or Perplexity, how he thinks. 2.1 million words of his content I've taken, organized, categorized, and applied to generative AI, and now people can talk to his mind. How he specifically thinks at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're stressing about sales and meta ads or whatever it might be, they can talk to this specific person's mind on how to get unstuck.
Do you think the people's minds are sharper than, let's say, one of the AI models? Can they give better advice?
So I will say this, as someone who is clearly a huge advocate of AI, nothing beats the human experience. Nothing.
So
AI.
you skipped a question. So
Sorry, go on.
someone watching this right now in my network, and they're looking to do this, what is it going to run them?
Oh, so for me to build a revenue generating AI persona, it's £15,000 plus VAT, right? And then I set up a subscription, which is within that build, which are, depending on who their audience is, $20 a month, 10 quid a month, whatever it might be, they make that money back immediately. I mean, in very short order. So it obviously then has to be marketed, right? And this is now a new revenue stream outside of their core products. So that's my flagship product. I'm basically scaling people's minds, a digital asset, and my contractual agreement between my platform and said expert is that asset is theirs. It's contractually theirs. Whereas you could have other sort of platforms that are around where you're basically renting space on someone else's platform. Yes, it sits on my platform because that's how it operates, but that space on my platform is always contractually their asset. And
now, is this a wrapper to one of the existing models, or have you built your own foundational layer to this?
I've built my own infrastructure, my own IP.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Now you heard it. This is where the future is going. There's going to be an AI model of you Ray Dalio, a famous author who wrote the book Principles. I follow him. I read his books. Love the guy. He's building his own model now. He said it's taking him a couple of hours a day, and there's a couple of people helping him do it. But this is one of the most intelligent people you could probably meet in the finance world, and even he is building an AI version of himself, and he's correcting it to behave exactly like him and to answer like him and to think like him. And so that is a fascinating future. I mean, if we can imagine that our grandkids can come and try to have a conversation with a virtual version of us, but I wonder, would it still bring that emotion, right?
So,
If my grandchild came and said, "Hey grandpa," and the electronic version of me responded, or digital version of me responded, do you think it would still drive emotion?
to the extent that it's been trained, yes. So the original version of AI Dylan, which is my AI version, which I brought to market a year and a half ago, and I thought I was late to market. A year and a half ago, I thought it was late. It took me 11 months to build my own. My background is Wall Street. It's not tech or AI. But I had to build this. I was like, I want to build this. I'm at zero. I don't know what I'm doing. I just traveled the path and kept going, mistakes, not understanding what the hell I was doing, kept going, learning, brought people in. They flaked, they just kept going, I had to make this, I had to build this. And I brought it to market. And that's when I presented it to this entrepreneur network in the UK. And the guy was like, what? Everyone's like, what? And my next layer to it was to AI my parents. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. This is where I get it from, right? This is why I didn't fit in Wall Street. I was number one Bridget, but I didn't fit in. I didn't feel like that. I was like, is this it? Is this it? But I was like, it's got to be it, because I've been told it was it. And so the gap, the void, was the fact that really what I should be doing is running my own business. But the time wasn't right 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was. AI is at the juncture right now where it's allowed me to now be creative, be entrepreneurial, run my own business, create something innovative, help serve others to scale their expertise. This gentleman that's the UK number one mold expert is 74 years old. He's now alive again because he's like, oh wow, I can like bring my business into like current popular culture and popular discourse in a way that I never could before. I thought it was done. I thought we were washed up. The business coach for whom I created this AI for, his community have had 6,000 unique conversations with his mind. His AI has responded back with 32,000 words of how he speaks. That has accounted for 1,050 hours of time. If you break that down Monday to Friday, 10 hours a day of a working week, that amounts to 5 months worth of working time. That this CEO, this business coach, has not had to lift a finger on. Imagine that time back in your pocket. So to the extent that it's been trained, it's really good or really basic. So to answer your question on emotion, well, if you like to answer to AI my parents, I mean, they're in their 70s, they don't have content. They don't have content the way these experts do, or a business coach does, or someone who's on social media does. So I record their conversations with them. How was dinner? What was your day like? What did you do today, Mom? What did you do today, Dad? Like, what's this? What's that? Like those conversations. And that captures tone. When you record a conversation and get the transcript of that conversation, I then take that and add it to the knowledge base, or to generative AI, to the model, to then synthesize self. And that is the path.
Crazy future that we're living in.
Right. So
crazy.
So that.
And by the way, I believe you. I believe you have been a user since the beginning. I have a lawyer whose name is Jonathan. If he's watching this, he's going to hate me for this. I've taken all of the emails, all the contracts over the years, and I've created an agent. Unfortunately, this is living within GPT for now, but I've created an agent of him that helps me review certain contracts.
Right.
So this way, I only bring him contracts like at the end stage, right before signing, rather than all the back and forth that's needed, and it saves me a shitload of money. Right. I've also made an agent with my knowledge on I mean, I didn't go as deep as making it, monetize it, but at least internally, I use it for my own self. And so when I have to respond to my team, for example, it responds as me and it understands how I would respond to that scenario. And so I have built these agents and I can understand how important that is and how it works. So that is pretty fucking cool.
It is cool.
And that is a crazy future we're living in.
And it's going to be, so now what you created, I've taken out of that. So that lives within the ecosystem of OpenAI or whatever it might be that you sat in, and it sits within there. I'm saying separate, independent of that, creating a digital asset that is yours in the same way that a house that sits on a piece of land is your asset. But in order to get to your house, you've got to drive down your street. That street you do not own, we do not own, but we have right of way. A GPT within OpenAI is not yours. It's theirs.
Yeah, for sure. It's not your agent. It's only yours until as long as you pay for it,
Right.
and until you use it. Once you stop, it's not your asset. You can't sell this asset. You can't monetize this asset. If you were to sell your company and this company, for example, at Mushroom Direct, we have an agent that is a mycologist. We didn't have a clue about, and we are, I guess, pretty good now. We've got people from all over the world reaching out for advice on this subject, especially to our CEO there. But the mycologist, we can't actually transfer it over to a new company as an asset because whoever the buyer is going to be is going to say, well, that actually belongs to OpenAI. So I could see the value of building a standalone asset that you can actually put in your pocket and take home. That's pretty dope. That is pretty dope.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that a lot. And that's the path that I've been going down. And concurrently with that, I'm now interested in speaking to people like you on this sort of who have different ways of looking at life and where we're at and navigating within that, because I think I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from you just from this conversation and our prior conversation and reading your stuff on LinkedIn. I'm hungry for more of that and having these types of conversations, right? Because I wasn't having these conversations sitting in Canary Wharf in London.
Right.
Just wasn't happening. And so this is a trajectory without a doubt, which I know is my purpose, life, sort of path that just I'm on it 24/7 and I can't stop.
How do you scale that though? How do you help, right now it's Dylan creating these one-on-ones with everyone. How do you scale that to have 50 Dylans helping, 100 people on a monthly basis rather than one of you?
So the framework that I've currently built now, it's not even an MVP, it's a working product that is out there, what I've built for people, so is to basically productize the process so that the ingestion of building it, not being built, the framework is built, of putting the content in so that we go from framework IP, which is my IP, which I will always own, but then when someone puts their content in, it becomes developed IP, configured IP. That ingestion, it sort of productizing that, streamlining that is the next stage, which I will be building so that I can have a tiered level of access to the product whereby people can have different versions of it depending on what price point they come in, where they can have it something that it sits on in my ecosystem all the way up to this is your product, this is your asset. So to answer your question, productizing it so that it then becomes scalable to take me out the equation. Right here, right now, as a company that's 5 months old, as it were, I'm the bottleneck. And so I'm solving for that right now, and I have a plan to solve for that. I now got to build that bit, but right here, right now, I've got, as I say, my money coming in. I mean, the margin is decent. It's in a unique situation. My burn rate is negative. I haven't done any marketing. I've only just started marketing literally 2 days ago. It's all been inbound referrals, high ticket contracts, creating programmable, monetizable digital assets, and the infrastructure layer beneath it that supports it. So I'm selling AI that earns, not AI that just talks.
There you have it. Whoever's watching this video, now you know what Dylan is busy with. You know how to find him. He's gonna be tagged in this video, obviously. So connect with
Wow.
him. Do connect. Do reach out. Do have this conversation with him. Fascinating conversation, Dylan. Really, really, really. Thank you for inviting me. And by the way, I told you when I launch my podcast, you better be one of the first guests that
Uh,
opts in.
I will be
To
on that immediately. I would absolutely love to. I never thought we were going to reframe this so we're talking about me or you're interviewing me, which is pretty cool. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the support, and I
the
appreciate.
hand of the giver is always on top, Dylan. That is the scenario.
There we go. I love that. I love that. I think that's why I was very excited about talking to you. Like post our last conversation, and the run up to this was like I was really looking forward to this, and it's gone beyond my expectations. So thank you so much for your time. And listen, as we close up and as we wrap up here, it's been a super interesting conversation, and I cannot wait to be on your podcast. And I cannot wait to have additional conversations with you, and I believe you and I will. I just don't know why. I just think we will. But tell me, define what winning is for you now. Not theory, your real definition. What does a life well built look like for you?
Not a single regret on my deathbed.
Wow.
Whenever that comes.
Wow.
Which means I'm living my life now on my terms. I'm raising my children on my terms. I am building my companies on my terms. I am doing what I set my mind to do on my terms. And that for me, at least in my eyes and where I am today, and I've been up and down the roller coaster. I've been in places, where most people don't want to be, and I've been to the places where most people want to be, right? I've been up and down this roller coaster. It's a constant in life. It's never like you're always on top or you're always on the bottom, right? And I could tell you that the most satisfying thing for me at this stage of my life, right? I'm 36. I'm a father of 3 now. I'm raising 3 daughters, right?
Wow.
So one day I want to look at them and be proud. And so that would be the biggest success, is that whenever it is that I graduate, I'll be on my deathbed laying down and saying, you know what, I've done all right. It's like that song from, is it Frank Sinatra? I did it my way. Remember that?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm looking forward to,
Mm.
I want to be able to say I did it my way.
You know what, Solomon? That was that's powerful. Really, really powerful, and very clearly you are doing things your way, and it is the right way that suits and aligns to who and what you are, and that that's going to give you power to continue, and you will indeed, I'm sure.
Inshallah, hopefully, man. Hopefully.
100%, without a doubt. Listen, this has been powerful. This has been exceptional. Thank you very, very much for your time. Where can people follow you and what you're building? And obviously, when your channel drops, I'm coming. But where can people find you
Well,
right
if they
now?
Google me, Solomon, Solomon. My last name is a tongue breaker, but it's Ibragimov. They can find us on our website, sakal.group, sakal.group. That is the family office website. And, they can Google me, find me online, find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect. I am going to be limited to the number of connections, so you could always follow me. But anyway, I welcome any interesting people, and that's my whole journey. Pleasure.
It's been incredible. As I said, this has been powerful. I appreciate your time, and I'm wishing you yet more success. Take care.
Likewise, brother. Stay blessed.